What do you think of when you hear the words sea monster? Some minds will jump straight to the enormous mosasaurs, giant marine lizards with the souls of Komodo dragons that terrorized marine life in the Cretaceous. Others will look to the infamous megalodon, or the Jurassic pliosaurs like Liopleurodon and Kronosaurus. Then there's the entire kraken niche, Tennyson's legacy, and one we've covered quite a bit on this channel already. No doubt when making a sea monster video there is no shortage of giant marine material to choose from. But not all monsters were created equal, and while very few minds would instinctively jump to the sleek and familiar ichthyosaurs, with their cute eyes and their modest size and their familiar appearance that gives them the look of one of our closest marine relatives, the dolphins, this is precisely where we find the greatest monsters the world has ever known. In this video, we're looking at the largest predators that ever swam the oceans, and we're singling out the absolute giants among a diverse and long-lasting order of marine reptiles that date back to before the dinosaurs. In the late Triassic, an enormous reptile, or at least parts of it, sank into the sediment in the warm and shallow waterways that once covered much of modern-day Britain. After its death, perhaps even during, it was likely pulled to pieces by other such giants, and then the plethora of smaller carnivores around at the time, but at the very least a part of its jawbone remained intact. This settled in the clay and mud and would have been covered by layers of much the same for tens of thousands of years. This animal would become one of the inconceivably unlikely few to be immortalized in the earth, as the organic compounds in this jawbone were slowly and systematically penetrated and replaced by minerals in this sarcophagus of mud, until the bone itself was made entirely out of rock. And there it would remain for 230 million years, during which time the dinosaurs would rise and fall above it, mammals would emerge, conquer the lands, even returning to the water, and sea levels would recede, and the seabed itself would be pushed up and revealed as what is now known as the Westbury Formation. Here, rocks would be dug out and mined by just one such mammal, who in 2016 would finally uncover the very resting place of this inconceivably ancient animal. The bone was identified as a partial bone of the jaw of a vertebrate, the cerangular bone. These are the bones that almost all land vertebrates have, all except mammals. They are muscle attachment sites, and to draw upon an example for a moment, they're some of the bones that have been found in the largest T-Rex fossils ever known. Scotty, the affectionately named and exceptionally well-preserved T-Rex found in Canada in the 90s, is one of the largest of its kind, estimated to have reached around 8 or 9 tons in weight and 13 meters in length. This was certainly one of the biggest predators on land ever, and its cerangular bones were a whopping 645 millimeters long. The partial cerangular bone, found in 2016, measured 960 millimeters long. More shockingly, the front part was missing. The bone fragment had an uncanny similarity to that of a known ichthyosaur, in the ichthyosaur genus Shonisaurus, which contained a 15-meter, 30-ton marine predator from the Triassic North America. In 2020, another fragment of such a bone was discovered in a similar location that suggests the completed length of this cerangular would have been somewhere around 2 meters. Moreover, histological studies of the samples suggest that these bones were still growing, and the 2-meter gnashes belong to a juvenile or a sub-adult. Ichthyosaurs are some of the most successful vertebrates the world has ever seen. They quickly came to dominate the oceans in the Triassic, originating from an as yet poorly understood group of terrestrial reptiles, who presumably fled the Pseudotsuchians on land to take their chances in the newly vacated niches of the post-Permian oceans. From here, they exploded in both diversity and size, and while their competition would come and go, they survived well into the late Cretaceous, when, as mysteriously as they appeared, they disappeared. In fact, it's beginning to look like they were still exploding in diversity well up until the end. And it wasn't the asteroid that killed them. That would have come 20 million years later or so. Ichthyosaurs disappeared around 90 million years ago, and nobody's sure why, which really points to the innate mystery around this ancient order, and perhaps sets the pace for a group of animals who would slowly emerge as possibly the largest creatures that ever existed on the planet. The owner of these immense jawbones found in England was declared to be a genus of ichthyosaur called Ichthyotitan. The species was named after the river next to which it was found, the Severn, and so the animal was therefore named Ichthyotitan severnensis. This creature wasn't just giant for an ichthyosaur. It remains to this day one of the largest animals ever known to science, with some estimates placing it in the realms of a blue whale in size. Given that we only have a couple of bones to go on, and that these are already competitive with the largest animal we know of today, chances are good that this line of reptilian monsters would have produced animals much larger. But unlike the whale, this was no gentle giant. Ichthyosaurs were predominantly active predators, massive, yet streamlined, with powerful propulsion and all the potential to realize their apex predator niches. This animal shares a lot of anatomical similarities with modern giants, who today are all mammals. Its robust jaws and skull structure reflect those of the sperm whale, a hunter of deep-sea squid. And this brings up the question of whether the Triassic giants filled this niche too, 200 million years before whales evolved. Today we don't have to guess at the largest blue whales, as we've historically pulled them out of the water and measured them. They remain the most massive creatures known so far, at up to 30 meters long and 200 tons. Upper estimates for the largest specimens of Ichthyotitan touch on around 25 meters in length, which is just a few short paces shy of the largest animals we've ever recorded. But again, these come from a mere dusting of specimens from a population that would have numbered in the millions over millions of years. And remember, blue whales eat plankton. This one didn't. This monster was an active killer. Ichthyotitan, then, sets itself apart from all other animals. Perhaps the most formidable predator the oceans have ever had to deal with, and its sheer size suggests that the Triassic oceans were rich with life to a scale that we can hardly imagine today. And the world's largest marine monster would have taken advantage of this richness for tens of millions of years. Then, at the end of their lives, these behemoths would give back to their ecosystems, feeding countless thousands of organisms with their flesh as they sank back into the mud. And the fragmented remains of these animals show signs of scavenging on the bones, and this reflects the paradox that in such a rich and diverse ecosystem, the conditions for preservation are even harder to come by. Being air breathers, they likely would have come to the shallows to die. Perhaps they'd even beach themselves to take their last breaths, and ultimately be scattered by the terrestrial predators that found them. Were they social? Could they talk to one another like sperm whales do today? Did they use echolocation to navigate the Triassic depths of the world's largest ocean? How did they sleep? Inferences from similar species can be made, but most of these questions endure and apply to most, if not all, prehistoric fauna alike. Some questions are easier to guess at, though. The mechanics of how this giant consumed its food draw intriguing parallels to modern-day marine predators. Like the orca or great white shark, Ichthyotitan would likely have had to employ acute sense of vision and hearing, sensing disturbances in water to home in on potential meals. For a beast of its magnitude, efficiency of movement would be essential, and its limb structure would be the key player here. Although this specimen found next to the Severn didn't have any limbs, and the species isn't known from anything more than its jaw as of yet, from its relatives we can make some estimates that a shift towards a more streamlined fin-like limb may have been present, as they are in the more advanced ichthyosaurs. These adaptations could facilitate powerful sweeping motions, and an efficient translation of its colossal power into a graceful high-velocity movement, perhaps even making Ichthyotitan severnensis one of the fastest giants in the ocean. It likely could have chosen more or less anything to eat, too. If it was social, perhaps it would have used cooperative hunting on balls of fish. It could have plucked out and crushed turtles as they swam by, and it could certainly have stolen or scavenged the hunts of other predators too, given that there is likely nothing in the ocean that would have been able to stand up to it. Some suggest that while the 15-meter Shonisaurus had a narrower fish-eating snout, Ichthyotitan may have had a broader, more powerful and better equipped jaw for flesh. Though fossil evidence really is still lacking in this regard. Unfortunately for us, and of course Ichthyotitan, this marine giant would disappear towards the end of the Triassic. This was a tumultuous time around 202 million years ago, marked by massive volcanic eruptions and possibly lethal asteroid impacts. The causes of this extinction event are still difficult to decipher, as are the lives of many of the creatures that it removed. But environmental catastrophes sparked widespread extinction events, which reshuffled the ecological deck. And for Ichthyotitan, these changes were too drastic to adapt to. Altered marine habitats and food sources, coupled with increasing competition from emerging species, likely sealed its fate. Moreover, the massive volcanic activities may have pumped lethal levels of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, accelerating the severity of the climate changes and the ocean acidification that would have followed, and all of this proved devastating to marine life. Such hostile conditions could incapacitate the marine food web, starting from plankton all the way up to the apex predators like Ichthyotitan. But the prehistoric oceans were vast and long-lived, and fossil hunting, as well as our understanding of what exactly we're digging up, is only just getting started. So while Ichthyotitan represents an alluring hint at what may or may not have been the largest animal to ever live, it cements the fact that Ichthyotitans are the ultimate marine monster, and opens the door for even bigger beasts to be found in the future. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider giving us a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more. We are still very much in the early stages of growing, so your contributions are particularly valuable to the channel. And that's all for this one. Thanks for sticking with it, and we'll see you next time.